Order. It is 5 minutes to 7. I apologize for the delay. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have to report that we took no action in closed session. Item F, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Board President announcements. I have one. It is welcome to Jessica White. I know Jessica came last time. I watched a meeting with a lot of people in attendance, and she's back. So I'm very happy to see that. Jessica is a senior at Rancho Del Mar High School. Everyone knows her as Jessie, so we'll go Jessie. Got that thing changed, I'll be calling you Jessica. Sorry. Last year, she served as ASB representative and was the editor of the yearbook. In her free time, she's a member of Las Niñas, a community service organization. Over the last 4 years, Jessie has contributed over 500 hours to the Orthopedic Institute for Children. This past May, she earned the Girl Scout Gold Award for developing an interactive reading game that is being used throughout Southern California to encourage literacy in young children. Very cool. In the fall, she plans to attend a four-year university. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And we'll look forward to your report in a little while. All right. Next on the list. Approval of the minutes of the meeting of September 30th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Barbara
I
abstains.
abstain, yeah.
We'll move on to the report of the superintendent.
All right, thank you. First of all, just a correction to the agenda. It's not a correction, but our police chief will be unable to join us tonight. So Chief Kepley will reschedule and we'll come back to a meeting in the future. But we have been working with him. Lydia's had a meeting with him just recently. Really the topic is school safety. It's something that we've had on our agenda. It's something I meet with the chief about pretty regularly, and I think it's really important work and increasingly timely, given what's happening across the country. Had some good news. The Street Magazine just ranked school districts across the country, and Palos Verdes Peninsula is ranked number 16 in the entire nation. One of only 2 high schools in the entire state that were ranked. The other just drew a blank. How did I draw a blank on it? San Marino, who is just slightly ahead of us for now. So pretty exciting, and just another validation of some of the work that's taking place here. Very happy to at this meeting, it's our first meeting since we've reached tentative agreements with both associations. Our PVFA and our CSEA teams have reached tentative agreements, so now it's back to them for their memberships to ratify agreements, and then we'll have some additional work here at the board level and the county level. But very excited about that work, and the agreements reached are they're good agreements. It's the largest compensation increase in more than a decade on both sides, back to back with last year's, which was the largest in over a decade. So good to be able to work with the associations. Also some great contract language work with both associations. I'd just like to point to one piece with PVFA that we felt especially good about, and that is significant increase in compensation for teachers who are teaching combination classes. I think that that's probably overdue. So very excited about that. We feel great about it. We've had quite a few visits out to school sites, trying to meet with staffs and PTA. Had a PTA meeting at Vista Grande this week. Mary Catalina, I think that was last night. It was last night. So last evening over at Mary Catalina. Great turnouts everywhere I'm going, having some really nice turnouts, good insightful questions, comments. It's been really fun. Had a open parent forum at Point Vicente and doing some problem solving there. Something that I'd like to do more of. It is a goal. It's a communicated goal that I'd like to get out and do more of those informal kind of visits where we can have back and forth dialogue. Mr. Bahadur Singh is going to go through our website upgrades later. Today, I will apologize ahead of time that we have a projector issue. So we did some screenshots and have some handouts, but apologize to our audience that will be watching on television later and in our audience here that we will not be able to project tonight. We do have another projector that will be here for our next board meeting. One thing I do want to point out, just in advance, is our section. We have a section dedicated to Public Records Act request, and we received some feedback on that, and I think that probably we should put a note on that site that it is incomplete, meaning that we will be posting the actual request that came in, the physical request, and we will be posting responsive documents. So in cases when there was a responsive document, meaning a document that answered the question that was in existence, we're just going to post it and look very much like the Palo Alto site that we looked at as a model. So that's coming, but it's 2 years of documents to go back through, and we think that those will be posted in batches as we go through that work. So excited about that. I've been in communication with Assemblyman Hadley. Actually, he came here and visited with our ledge reps, and really excited that AB 306 is no longer an AB. It is now a law. And AB 306, just as a reminder, prohibits school districts from disallowing students, active military families who are in military housing, from leaving the district. So that could have a potential impact with us, depending on what direction our board would like to take. It does not mean that our district is obligated to take students from military housing, but it means that in our case, LA Unified cannot deny the students from leaving the district. So that is something that we will definitely be bringing to the board for consideration. We'll work through the nuances of that, but we think that's a good thing to support our military families. Okay. At this point, I'd like to turn my time over to Mr. Bahadur Singh for the website update.
Thanks, Dr. Austin. What I'd like to do tonight is just provide a quick brief overview of the website and kind of walk you through some of the new features. For those of you who do not have the capability to see it, the address is pvpusd.net. So first of all, I want to start out by talking a little bit about some of the goals of the website. As we redesigned it, there's a few key areas we wanted to focus on in terms of what we were trying to accomplish. And first of all, it is a communication tool for the district, and that touches on several areas. Information resources for our stakeholders, for our community, our parents, as well as people that are potentially moving to the community, looking for schools, finding information about our district. It's also an opportunity for us to highlight some of the programs and accomplishments that we're very proud of in our district, of our students, our staff, and our parent involvement. And what we're seeking is to have a balance of some of those things and give us an opportunity to tell our story in some cases. Going back to a little bit of how this came about, we developed a partnership with a company named EdLeo, who is the content management system that the website's built on. We spent a lot of time looking at not only what our previous website had, but also a lot of other school districts and websites to look at elements that we felt either we should add, can enhance our website. We looked at colleges and universities, some of the high-performing districts across the nation, and we feel like we've been able to combine some of those elements with some of the things that our community is used to seeing and expecting. So what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through the homepage. Let's show you some of the features, and then some of the real quick show you some of the other things I'd like to point out. As you see that on the website, and the board can see here on the screen, on the monitor, that there's a lot of components that are similar. We have the same pull-down types of menus that are similar to what we had before. But probably one of the most notable things is a lot of school websites, you'll see a lot of pictures and shuffles, but we felt that it was important to not only provide those images, but tell the story behind them. So you'll see as the pictures shuffle through, visitors to the website have the opportunity to find out more information about that particular topic. And these will continue to change throughout the year and ongoing. Like Dr. Austin always likes to say, a website's never done. It'll be an ongoing, even some of the things he pointed out earlier, is you'll see more things being added and changed and updated. So below that, as we move down a little bit, you'll see that one of the features that we're kind of excited about is we have little scrolling messages that can be added to the website for special announcements, emergency situations, things that we want to point out or highlight for our visitors at a glance real quick instead of having to search for something if they just need quick information. Below that, we have several links and icons for what we felt are some of the information items that our visitors really need to have. For example, enrollment information for new families, calendar information. A lot of our parents are interested in finding out calendars and events. And one of the things that we heard a lot from our community is access to our staff. How do we get improved access? Phone numbers, email addresses. So on the directory link, you'll see that we have listed all the administrative staff, school sites, where you can also not only find the phone numbers, but you can directly send an email to those people or to the school sites directly to the principal. So we feel like that was a nice feature because we'd heard that for some time that people were having to struggle to find how to contact our staff. Moving down, you'll see that we have some of the same elements. We have our, what we term our blog, Education Insights, that Dr. Austin, several of the administrative team will routinely update and add new stories to that, a news section. And then over on the right, we have a spotlight section, which we can change at any time to focus on important topics that are timely and relevant. We have a Twitter section for our social media, and one of the new features that we're pretty excited about is the video gallery. If you have not had a chance to watch the STEM video, it's well worth the watch. Thank you to the Peninsula Ed Foundation for putting that together. I think you'll be impressed by that. Quick links are some of the more common things that our community and stakeholders have routinely are looking for: budget information, community, LCAP, how to contact us. We do have a section called School News Stream, which allows our visitors to follow us on social media at each school. So if visitors are looking for following a specific school or principal, this is a quick reference guide for that. And scrolling down, we complete the homepage at the bottom where we have an infographic which we feel highlights just some of the important aspects for visitors to our district who may not be familiar with what we feel are some of the key talking points and high-performing elements of what we as a school district can offer as a world-class district. What I'd like to do next is just take you real quick through a page to kind of show you how the navigation works. Some of the feedback we received so far is that things are a lot easier to find, the navigation's quicker, it's designed a little bit easier for folks to find the information they need. So I'm just going to pick a department. I'm going to choose special education, And as you see on the right-hand side over here is the navigation for subcategories and more departments within that directory. For example, special education, we have health services, information and links that parents can find quickly and easily. The other thing that we have under each department is a staff link so that you can contact the staff that's directly responsible for that department. So this will hopefully help our parents and our visitors be able to get in touch with people in a more direct route, see the phone numbers, and directly email them. So real quickly, some of the other areas that we hope to expand on is we have, we continue to add more resources for our parents and students. We're pretty proud of the information under our curriculum and especially our math section. We have been working closely with educational services to offer things like the online textbooks, resources for parents to access upcoming information about our Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 pilot, our course sequencing, our course criteria. Some of the same information was there in the past, but we feel like it's a lot quicker and easier for parents and families to access. Like Dr. Austin said, we'll continue to be adding more information. We are seeking additional feedback from our community to hopefully provide greater information, access, and continue to share some of the accomplishments of what our students and staff have done.
Thank you, Trent.
I have a suggestion. It's really a shame the projector wasn't working. It just decided to flame out right before the meeting, because this is a wonderful communication device, and no one in the audience can see what we're seeing, which is somewhat defeats the whole purpose. So I think it was a great presentation, Trent, but I would like to see it brought back when we have the projector working, and maybe when you've got something else that's added to it, because you said it's still a work in progress, because I really think it's important that people in the audience have the opportunity to see what you've done, and also, you know, whoever may be seeing this via streaming or however we're doing it now on TV, so that they can see it, because it is a change from the old format. So I would just appreciate if you could bring it back at a later date.
Sure.
Is it live, Trent?
Yeah, this is live.
So anyone can go on right now?
Yeah, yeah. So the nice thing is if you just go to pvpusd.net, you'll be able to kind of recap what I
And what's the
presented.
process for feedback?
There's a contact link on our website. They can email us, anybody on staff, and if there's a particular concern, for example, if someone is looking for information about a particular department or they're unsure, there's also a search feature on the website, but we're happy to try and make it as user-friendly as possible for our stakeholders.
Or recommendations, right?
Sure.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
I tried to Google something the other day and I was lazy and didn't go into the website first. I just Googled like calendar or something, and it gives you a can't find thing. And I don't think that's your fault, anyone's fault. I think it's just Google hasn't quite caught up with
Yeah.
the new website yet. How long does that usually take? Do you know?
Well, there's always an option to work with Google for a fee to help increase your
Of
rankings.
course.
Speed them
Of
up.
course.
But usually, you're right. A lot of, so let me back up a little bit. Many of you remember years ago, it used to be pvpusd.k12.ca.us. So because when we changed it over about, I think, a year and a half ago to pvpusd.net, if someone goes to or sends an email to that domain, it will still route to the new website or to your existing email. Because at the State Department of Ed, they still have, for example, old contact information they have not updated. That will also take some time as we see more and more people hit our website, that it'll change in some of the Google results and search engines.
Anything else?
Now, my only conclusion to that is a couple things. First of all, as Trent mentioned, a website is never done. But we have no desire to go touch it a lot right now. Trent and I and our teams have put a ton of work. This is months and months and months of work, and we've gone back since and compared it to other high-end districts. I would put us in the top 10% of the state right now, and that's tested. You know, go compare. I would encourage anyone to compare. I think this is definitely a top 10% in the entire state. So we're proud of the work, but it is not done.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to report of student board members. I'm also going to let the audience know that after the board member reports and the student board member reports, write a public comment. I'd appreciate if people could turn in their cards for all the items they're going to ask to see comments on. So as long as you can do it by the time we get to the public comment on non-agenda items, I'd appreciate it, so we're not having every 5 minutes someone running up with 3 more cards. I'd like to just get all the cards in advance. Okay, so report of student board members. Emily or Jesse, who would like to go first? Great.
So far this year, Rancho Del Mar has had students take tours of colleges, and those being Los Angeles Harbor College, El Camino College, and Cal State Dominguez Hills. We have more planned in the future, and on September 25th, we had 4 students go to Capital Comes to Campus. I was among the 4, and I thought it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the experience. Project Ego meetings have begun. We have 10 students participating in those twice a month. We also awarded our 26 perfect attendance and 12 student of the month awards. Those you get for, doing those things. We also actually had a tutorial of the website. Ms. Humphrey came around with little Chromebooks, and she showed us how it works, so the students can keep track of their grades and everything like that. SoCal Rock has also begun. We have 20 students taking classes this year, which is a lot of our students because we only have 70 or 80. This year our math instructor, Mr. Gold, is piloting the McGraw-Hill curriculum. So we have all of those new books in our office for anyone to check out. We're also in the process of ASB elections. I was ASB representative last year and I absolutely loved it. So I hope whoever gets it enjoys. We're also encouraging students and parents to sign up for the Skechers Walk upcoming on October 25th to support the Peninsula Educational Foundation. And our first quarter ends on October 30th, so all of our grades are being prepared and sent home. We're also really busy preparing for WASC accreditation because that happens in March 6th through 9th of 2016, but they started preparing like a long time ago. So, and we're preparing for our annual Halloween barbecue. So that happens this year on Friday the 30th from 10:50 to noon. And if any board members want to come, you are welcome to come down for a burger. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily?
Okay, so this week at PV is College Week. So in addition to the already extensive prep that our College and Career Center provides us, they're having a kind of a large college week where they break down like a road to success to four-year university. So our freshmen have the opportunity to meet with a admissions officer from various colleges, while our juniors and sophomores take practice ACT, PSAT, or SAT. The juniors are hoping to place for national merit, and the sophomores are hoping to determine which test they are best suited for. And then the seniors have optional workshops that happen today with mostly UC schools to kind of discuss how to break down the UC application, as it's quite different from the common application. We're also preparing for our Skechers Walk. Our goal is to have 700 walkers this year, since last year we had 600. And to do that, ASB has come up with a fun way to encourage students to join by having, for every 200 students that sign up, administration and staff will train during our lunch breaks. So they will be taken through obstacle courses and forced to do yoga, or not forced, encouraged to do yoga.
No, it's probably more like forced.
Yeah, not forced, never. And then the week will culminate in a team walk through Sea King Park to prepare for the Skechers Walk in Manhattan Beach. Avid and PV Song and Cheer held their annual fundraisers. So Avid did their pancake breakfast, which was a huge success, and PV Song and Cheer held their kitty clinic, which is for younger cheerleaders who would like to be Sea Kings eventually, to come and like experience PV life, get paired with a cheerleader or a song girl, and have the opportunity to see what it would be like to cheer at a varsity game. Lastly, we end October with one of our favorite events of the year, which is Red Ribbon Week. It has become a tradition to have it during October to encourage Sea Kings to celebrate Halloween, especially in a safe manner. Activities that we have this year are the MAAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD car on campus, which kind of demonstrates the effects of drunk driving. We have a guest speaker, Alex Gray, who gives motivational speeches on the benefits of staying away from drug and substance abuse. And we'll also have a movie night in Sea King Park and a Pumpkin Palooza Fall Day. And it's because drunk driving has dramatically affected PV High Sea Kings in the past, I think we all really take this event seriously, but we try to make it a positive and fun, event as well. So we're very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed Dr. Park is sitting in the audience, and at least this means if they get to 800 walkers that you're not going to be in a tent on top of a building like your counterpart might be. Possibly you could come, you're supposed to coordinate and cooperate with each other. Maybe the two of you could do the tent and yoga together or something like that. Just thinking. All right. Reports of board members. Barbara, do you have anything to?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to pass a folder down for everyone. Concerns SoCal ROC, and I thought I would just go over what's been happening with them and their finances and everything. And first, what I thought I would do, in your booklet at the top page is a list of classes just for this fall. And I want you to see the depth and the breadth of the types of courses that are offered at SoCal ROC that are not available at our high school campuses. And I'm just going to real quickly just point out a few of them. In the School of Art and Design, they've got digital photography, they've got creature sculpting for games and fun. You need to learn how to sculpt creatures so you can go into animation and be really good at this. 3D animation, Adobe Suite. In the School of Engineering and Design, they've got aerospace engineering, automotive modules for those, Cisco networking, engine performance, HVAC, plumbing, residential electrical wiring, the exciting world of engineering. In the world of finance and business, they've got administrative office assistant, banking and financial services. In the School of Public, and these are just some of them. There are at least 10 or 12 or 20 more that I'm not going over. School of Public and Consumer Services, that has to do with cosmetology, floral design, hotel and restaurant occupations. School of Health and Sciences, which you can see is the biggest one, that's got about 30 courses. And we've got American Sign Language, Certified Nurses Assistant, Dental Assisting for Adults, Early Childhood Education, Emergency Medical First Responder, Human Body Systems, Sports Medicine. Anyway, these are just a sampling. There's probably 100 courses here that we are in danger of losing. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Because having served on the board at SoCal ROC during this very difficult time for us financially has been a journey into the world of politics. And it's a fascinating journey. And just for an example, it's Tom Torlakson, who's the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. When he was running for re-election a year ago, I think it was a year ago. Was that when the election was? It seems like 100 years ago. But anyway, and Al Marsucci were running. They both came to SoCal ROC and they said, oh, we have to save this place. And it was a photo op. It was a whole big production. So here we have the State Superintendent of Public Instruction who wants to save the place. Al Marsucci wanted to save the place. Tom Torlakson gets elected and we don't hear from him again. But when we apply for grants from his office, we don't get them, okay? Is there a correlation? I don't know, but the grants were important to us. We have gone through the process of trying to get, the whole point of all this is that Governor Brown and the legislature eliminated all of the funding for the ROCPs in the state of California. And there were 500,000 students taking these classes. And they just deliberately eliminated the funding with no discussion, no nothing. So when we went up there originally to talk to the legislators, we said, you know, how did this happen? And time after time we were told, oh, it must have been a mistake, an oversight. They just forgot to put in the $350 million that had been there for 2 generations to pay for these courses. Well, that really wasn't the truth, as we understand from Kevin Gordon, because Kevin told us, who is our lobbyist, I guess you would call him in Sacramento, that they needed the money for the local control funding formula to work up and down the state of California, so they simply eliminated this program. The problem is this is a program that was set up originally for high school students. But the vision of the state now is not to provide those types of classes for high school students. That is now left to the local school districts to determine if out of your local control funding money you want to support these types of programs. I've just given you a list of the types of programs that SoCal ROC provides because it's part of a joint powers agreement, and there are 6 school districts that for 2 generations have funded their ROCP monies to create this program for the students of all of our districts, because believe it or not every child is a STEM student. Not every child is a genius in math or science. There are some who really want to get their hands dirty, and they want to do welding, or they want to do electrical, or they want to work on cars and work on car engines and things like that. We don't provide those types of courses now for those children. The only way it's done is through these ROCPs. But that is no longer the vision of the state of California. By eliminating the funding, what they want is they want school districts to partner up with community colleges. And so they want school districts to send their students who want those types of courses to take them in an adult school or at a community college. And so what has happened in our particular joint powers agreement, there are 5 other school districts, all of whom are in the South Bay, and their community college is El Camino. That is their regional community college. That is not PV's community college. Our college is Harbor. And so what has happened is the state has cut off the funding for the ROCPs. We have tried through Ben Allen's office to continue some of the funding for us. His bills have been defeated time and time again. He has been a superstar in my mind trying to get money for us. We have used a lobbyist who has lobbied up there, and bills were going to provide funding for us because we are different. We actually have a site. There are only 2 ROCs, which is regional occupational centers, where there's sites or buildings that handle these types of courses in the state of California. And it's gotten up to the highest level. And then we've been defeated because some 26-year-old from the Department of Finance came in and said, well, SoCal ROC doesn't need the money for the next year because they have funding. Well, you can't run a program like that year to year. So we may very well be in our last year of existence, is the reality. And in a way, PV is going to be in a worse place because we are not part of the regional group that has been set up in the South Bay. The school districts that are involved are Manhattan Beach, Redondo, El Segundo, Inglewood, and Torrance. They are all in a consortium with El Camino College. El Camino is not our college, and we are not part of that group. As far as I know, we've had no contact from anyone from Harbor. At least I haven't heard of anything.
Barbara, can I ask you a couple clarifying questions?
Yeah.
So the governor did his original budget the ROCs were not in there. You
Yeah.
explained that again. Our understanding was that the solution on the May revise, and then the information we got from Kevin Gordon when he was here, that there would be some very large, sizable, competitive grants that both SoCal ROC and kind of the Northern California version would be very well situated to compete for.
Yes.
Did those grants, those RFPs actually go out? We applied and were denied, or are we still waiting to
Okay,
apply?
this is what's happened. There have been 2 sets of grants that have gone out, and we were not selected. Okay? I think the Northern California one may have gotten a grant. We did not get one. There are 2 more grants that are coming out that have just been signed into law. But reading the tea leaves, I mean, we have tried so hard to get funding for SoCal ROC, and every time we get, it goes through to about the highest level, and then it's blocked, it's blocked, it's blocked. It's a real interesting process. We will try for the grants. One of those grants will require all of the school districts in the Joint Powers Agreement to agree to help us financially get those grants. And I don't know if those school districts will, in fact, sign on for that. And it requires a 3-year commitment. But we are down to our last amount of money. There was $3.5 million that had been generated by SoCal Rock through adult ADA, and they gave that money to Torrance Unified. Torrance is sitting there like the cat that ate the mouse. I know, it's very strange. What happened is Torrance is the lead agency in all of this, because when this consortium was started in the late 1960s, it was the superintendent of Torrance who had the idea, and so they are the lead agency for SoCal ROC. And so the money has flowed through the years to SoCal ROC, but it flowed through Torrance. So we tried to keep the money for us because it's a deal breaker for us. We need that money. And they gave it to Torrance. And this is what they did. It's a short-term gain for Torrance. They wrapped it into their LCFF formula as part of the GAP money. So it's accelerated the money that Torrance will get. At the end, Torrance will get no more than they were supposed to get, but they have the 3.5 that historically has flowed to us. That's the money that we use to run the center.
Do we know if the other 5 districts are in dialogue with El Camino?
They are all involved with El Camino, I mean, as part of the consortium. Those students will get priority at El Camino for any of those classes, because the vision of the state now is to get rid of these classes that were primarily for high school students. That's what that's what was so great about SoCal ROC, is that from 3:30 to 6:30, those classes were only for high school students.
Let me reframe my question, Barbara. Do we know if those 5 districts are currently already kind of have bypassed the competitive grant option, which is part of our joint powers, right? We'd all have to be involved, and have kind of said, listen, there's only 1 strike's gone, we didn't get that grant, there's 2 left, but we're going to go ahead and
We
go
don't
with
know
this.
yet, because you can't apply for the grant until the applications are out and you find out what the rules are, and we've been waiting for that. They're all aware of the grants coming out, but we didn't know, and I'm not sure that we know yet exactly what the application's going to look like. All I'm telling you is all those other districts are, whether the students utilize the pathway to El Camino or the adult schools, which have been set out for them, I don't know. I don't know whether high school students are going to want to go to an adult school, or whether El Camino is going to be convenient, or whether El Camino is going to have the classes at a time that are convenient for high school students, because, you know, they're in high school during the day.
So what happens next?
So what happens next is 2 things for us. This is what I'm thinking. Number 1, we will hopefully apply for the grants, but we're going to need the support of the school districts. I know that's required for one of the grants. And the other thing is perhaps we should contact Harbor College, because they are our region, and find out what, if anything, they're doing or will do for us, just in case. Because right now, we only have enough money to run a program for students to the end of June of 2016. And so, you know, this is where we are. I mean, it's a shame. It's a great program, but apparently no one in Sacramento really cares about the kids, because this isn't about the kids, and it isn't about what's best for high school students. It's best for the new Sacramento vision of how things should be done in the state of California. So this is where we are, and I just wanted to let you know, and I wish I could have a really upbeat report, but I'm not upbeat. And
In the material you handed out, I don't see Dr. Hoffman's name anymore.
oh, she retired.
Okay, that's news.
Oh, okay, she retired a year ago, and Dr. St. Jean, who was the deputy superintendent, who was the business person, is now the superintendent.
Okay.
And we've had to cut back our staff so much that the superintendent is now still the deputy superintendent, so she's, you know, we've cut back classified staff, we've cut back teachers, we actually have cut back our program offerings because we're trying to stay within our budget. And so anyway, this is where we are, and if it's going to survive at all, we're going to need the help of the 6 school districts that are part of the JPA, and if that help isn't there, we will disappear.
Can I ask you a question? I'm confused. This $3.5 million that went to Torrance,
Well, it's,
do they get it? Can't they just give it to SoCal Rock, or is that simplistic?
they haven't given it to us. I mean, they think it's theirs because it flowed through them. All these years it's flowed through them to us because that was the only way the state would do it. And, you know, we fought for the money. They hired school services to represent them, and that's a real interesting thing because I don't think that school services, who puts themselves out there as representing all school districts, should be lobbying one school district against another. But they did, and anyway, at the end of the day, Torrance ended up, and that with the money, and that really hurt. So that's where we are, and if nothing changes, we will not have the money to run a program after June of 2016. So at that point, we will be talking about other things. So I just thought I'd let you know and just share with you the breadth of classes that we will be giving up. So that's where we are.
It would be great for our student board members, too, to let their schools know, because that seems like something that students probably don't know anything about that might have an opinion on and could share that.
All right. Technology Advisory Committee.
We meet in this room next Thursday at 3:30.
Okay. School Facilities Board Subcommittee.
Yeah, I don't have anything to report other than what I did last time.
Individual board members. And Barbara, do you have anything else to add?
Oh, no, I think that's enough.
Malcolm?
No.
Just really briefly, I visited a couple schools in the last few weeks. My new theme is to step outside of my comfort zone, so I attended a football game at PV High, which I'd never done before, and I saw the little kids with their little cheerleading outfits on. It was very cute and very fun, and they won the game, which was fun. And then I visited some art classes at Peninsula High School from an invitation from Mr. Karg there, and visited a glassblowing class, and I don't know anything about art at all. And it was fascinating to see what the kids were doing, and it goes a little bit along with the SoCal Rock things. And he explained to me also that all the standards are changing for art nationally. It requires a lot of work and thought on the part of the teachers, and I appreciated what he was doing and what all of his teachers were doing there. So it was fascinating on both counts.
And I don't have anything to report, but I have a question for Trent. And it's a simple one. Could you tell us where we are in the process of airing our board meetings? Give it a little status update for me, please.
Sure. ironic, I had an email from the city of RPV today. The cable's broadcast will continue, and that will be on through the city of RPV TV, their program. They are sending out information today via email about the process and the costs. It's $45 per meeting to broadcast. The process is a little bit different. We'll be dropping off a DVD to them, and they will continue to air at the same time. Initially, I think I may have this wrong, but they're going to jump to channel 35 and then back to the current channel after they get kind of the transition period. So so viewers will still be able to watch on cable TV. We are doing our second pilot of a streaming solution this evening, and we feel that if this all goes well, we'll have both options available for our community to see it live, which they have not had for several years, streaming, and also kind of an on-demand type of thing if they miss either the cable TV broadcast or the live streaming. So that's kind of where we are with Cox.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll move to items not on the agenda, and Sandy Valeri.
Good evening. A few weeks ago, I submitted my first and my only request for information. I was not on some sort of political witch hunt. Mine was initiated really due to a presentation that was regarding a pilot program regarding behavioral modification intervention. And I was curious on how we were going to evaluate this program. And having been a program and project manager in engineering for 10 years or 12 years of my life, I thought typically you evaluate such things using metrics. And so I was wondering, what kind of metrics do we use to evaluate student achievement and student progress? And so I set about putting together a list of what I thought were reasonable kind of metrics that we might possibly use in our district, and also measures that I know I had seen presented before in certain parent presentations during the years. So I put those together, and I asked them, and I figured maybe we don't have all of them, but I'll get some of them. That was my thought. So I submitted that. Well, I got nothing back. That I was completely denied. We don't have anything. What I found later on is that my name was on the district website, that I had asked for this information. I got back my letter of denial saying that my request would take 6 hours and they would give me nothing unless I first paid for the 6 hours of effort to complete my request. But what shows up on the database is that my effort would in fact be 10 hours and it was completed. So this is erroneous and misleading. If you just look at the database, it would appear that the district spent 10 hours completing some work and giving me something, when in fact the district completed 0 hours of effort and gave me 0. So I want to make that clear. The district did nothing, gave me nothing. Now, what did I ask for? I asked for metrics. I asked for metrics regarding like how many ninth graders are taking algebra honors now versus how many are taking it in 10th grade, and how does that compare with a couple past years, looking at like 3 past years. And also for 10th grade, how many are taking geometry versus geometry honors now, and again, looking back for about past 3 years. I wanted to see, are there trends? Are they about average? Are we staying steady? Are we seeing more children taking the honors classes or fewer children taking the honors classes? These are reasonable questions. The things you'd want to look at if you're saying what is change going on in the district. And I also looked at the intermediate level, how many are taking regular versus accelerated math. So there were about 30 discrete measures, but they were like this. How many are taking science, honors versus, at the high school level, chemistry versus honors chemistry, or biology versus honors biology, and what kind of grade are they getting, A, B's, or C's? Again, very reasonable kind of question, looking for metrics. Turns out we don't take any kind of metrics like this. We have a 0 metrics database, and they could not answer any of these questions. 0. I got back 0 data. And then I had also asked for AP information. Again, looking as a metric. How many students have taken AP calculus, statistics, or whatever? And again, they didn't have that. And I thought this was pathetic, because these are the kind of data points that are collected by third parties. And if third parties out there like US News are collecting this data, but we don't have it, that's ridiculous. Now, metrics have been used across all industries for about 35 years. Engineering, education, financing, banking, healthcare. Everybody uses metrics, but we don't have a metrics program. I'm just Ms. Obvious, okay? I didn't have a political agenda. I was just looking for metrics, and what I uncovered is we have none. So instead of putting me out there and pillarizing me on the website, going, oh, you asked for 10 hours of data, like I'm some bad person.
Sandy, wrap it up, please. We understand.
Instead of trying to pillarize me, somebody should say, metrics, we never thought of that. What a good idea. Thank you.
Desiree Myers?
I've heard from many parents about inappropriate occurrences at school. So many of us have sought answers. Is the information accurate? Is it legal? Is it authorized? PVPUSD now posts a list of records requests and the number of hours spent. I have no idea why the hours are so high, particularly with all the requests that are being denied and inaccurately marked complete. So there's a concern that we all have about wasted funds. It's a concern for everybody. Here we have a castle for $10 million, yet we have kids on the other side of the hill that have been in trailer parks for over a decade. None of the kids have air conditioning, but it sure feels good in here today, doesn't it? Records requests are not a problem. They're a symptom of a problem. And in this case, PVPUSD authorities breaking the law and misusing the trust that was placed in them. We have found about a dozen instances where the laws have been broken and the children placed at risk. At the last meeting, Mr. Austin said, we need to debate such things on fact and truth. Ms. Reed said the money could be saved on records requests if the district did a better job of communicating information. Further, she indicated that her voice, before being on the board, was valued because it was civil in tone, and she was willing to work with staff to solve problems. Mr. Austin, I'd like to meet with you and review my list of broken laws. I'd like to make this list public. I'd like people to be able to see what's going on and what these discussions are, and let's solve them once and for all for the children. And let's do it with complete transparency, because it's all about having it out in the open and doing what's best in the interest of the children, because that's really what winning is all about, doing what's best for the children and reaching the truth. Our facts should not differ, even if our opinions do. Will the board make a motion tonight to agendize this item?
We don't operate that way, but I understand what your point is. Thank you. Joan Davidson? And Joan, you had asked to comment on SCROC, and you're welcome to do it here, please.
I was going to ask about airing the meetings, and partially it was answered, and I appreciate that. But we had some great high school students here a couple of meetings ago. I don't think I was here at the last meeting, but the one before that. And if I'm not mistaken, don't the Peninsula High kids computer stream their football games? I'm not sure, but you might, I mean, if they've got the ability to do it, you know, we can hire them. Let's use them to do that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was SCROC. Because I was the president of SCROC, and if we lose that, it's going to be huge for us, especially for special ed kids, and I'm very concerned about it. So I thought I'd bring I don't know if you know these things, I'll bring it to your attention. I don't know if you were aware that Torrance actually owns that land, even though there's a pool of six districts that Torrance.
No, they don't own it.
Well,
No.
I went to the county deed. Just look into it, if you will. Not the school district. I think the city owns it.
Okay, we can't go back and
Okay,
forth
I'm
on this,
just
but-
telling you, because
Thank you.
that land is so valuable, and Scott Robinson is leasing their repair services at that corner. That land is so valuable. I'm thinking that there may be some way to brainstorm this, to use that land, keep SCROC where it is, if we can get lease money, at least to do something on that land. Because if we lose this, the special ed kids are going to be hammered, and it's horrible. I mean, I just can't imagine this, not having it. So I hope you look into those things. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Special report M1.
Thank you, and we're happy to provide an update on the 35th Annual Palos Verdes Peninsula Rotary Educator of the Year Award. And our 4 award winners this year are Kathy Rodriguez from Rancho Vista Elementary, first grade teacher, Catherine Chin, 4th grade teacher from Rancho Vista, Chantel O'Laughlin, Palos Verdes Intermediate music teacher, and Louis Harley, Palos Verdes High School history teacher. If you're interested in attending the Rotary event, we were there last year. It's a really special evening, and we hope you can join us. It's dinner, speeches, and a lot of good comradeship with fellow educators from local schools on the peninsula. The deadline for RSVPing is just around the corner. It is Friday. So if you are interested in the audience, you can find information online. We also have copies of the flyers and invitations in the Human Resources office. And we'd like to invite the educators to the next board meeting. And we also hope that you will see them give their presentations at the Rotary event coming up in November.
Thanks. One of the really cool things is that they're introduced usually by the principal of the site they're at, and it's very heartfelt, and it's a very nice dinner. Okay, M2, LACO.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Jessica Silberling, our Director of Special Ed and Pupil Personnel. There's no projector.
Yeah, it's just program.
Is that
It's just program for the curtains.
Just for effect.
That was all for you, Jessica.
Thank
All for you. And just apologizing before Jessica begins her presentation to our audience for the projector, but we do have copies of the PowerPoint in the back table. So I'd like to turn it over now to Jessica Silberling.
Thank you, Dr. Austin, Dr. Colbert-Harrelson, members of the board for having me tonight. So my presentation tonight, the goal of the presentation is to provide you guys with some information regarding the Los Angeles County Office of Education, or LACO, services for our special education students. There's no action that needs to be required tonight. However, there have been concerns raised, and I felt that it was critical that you be aware of the information. So that's the goal of the presentation tonight. Before I go into the concerns, I thought it was important to share the background of our relationship with LACO, and our relationship is through the Southwest Special Education Local Plan Area, or the SELPA, and we are one of 12 districts that participate in the SELPA. The SELPAs were created in 1977 as a way to group small districts geographically in regions so that they could provide a wide scope of services in the specialized areas to students. Often these services are very unique or require specific credentials or specializations in order to meet our students' needs. So we are part of the Southwest SELPA. One of the things that we do in the Southwest SELPA is we partnered with LACO to provide some of these special education services. We currently have a shared cost billing model between the 12 districts. We primarily provide students in Palos Verdes with services for deaf of hard of hearing, orientation and mobility, visual impairment, and low incidence disabilities. Those services are provided within our schools, the bulk of them, with consultants through LACO that have these specialized credentials to ensure that our students are able to access curriculum and to meet their needs. We have 52 students that are supported at this time. With that background information, it brings us to the current concerns. And these concerns have been raised across the 12 districts consistently by the special education directors, and they focus on the billing model, and some of those specific concerns are the increased billing by LACO when services have remained the same or decreased in a district. There has been an increase in overhead costs despite the closing of facilities and programs. And the other concern that was raised is the double billing for group services between districts when you have multiple students participating in a group service by one provider. So as a result of these concerns that have been raised consistently for the last couple of years, the SELPA director brought forward to the Superintendent's Council in June of 2015 the concerns, and they took action at that time and voted to give LACO notice of a possible take-back of programs. In order to do that, LACO had to officially be noticed by July 1st, which is the start of the fiscal year, and the Southwest SELPA did, in fact, give that notice on July 1st. So that being said, it kind of leads us to what do we need to do as a district, and what does that mean for us? So the next step for our students and for our district starts tomorrow, actually. There is a joint superintendent, finance, and directors meeting held for all 12 districts, and myself, Dr. Austin, and Kathy Ewenton will be attending. And the goal for us at this meeting is to listen and to determine if we can come to a joint consensus across the districts that's in the best interest of our students. I think that while we are there and we are going to listen to the direction that the SELP is giving, it's imperative that we as a district continue to analyze our own data and to look at what is best for our students based on the needs and the services that we are currently utilizing through the SELPA. And then after tomorrow's meeting, we will have more information that will help sort of guide action steps at that time. My goal is to continue to bring information to the board as we go through this process and to update you as regularly as possible as we move through this. But as I said in the beginning, there's no action needed tonight, but I felt that this was a critical information that should be shared with all of you. So thank you. Is there any questions?
I have questions. You said that there were 52 students in the district who are utilizing the LACO services. Are any of those students, and they're in the district?
Yes.
Okay. Are any of them housed here on the campus in the building that LACO is currently renting from us?
No, that is actually a SELPA program, not a LACO run program. The one that's housed here is a SELPA program. It was transformed, I believe, last year. So.
Okay, well that leads to my next question. Okay, because I have old information, so you need to update me. In the financial impact, it says that the LACO invoice for their services was $252,000 to approximately, okay? So, and I'm going to go back to that building. Because when we remodeled this particular facility, we made an agreement with LACO.
SELPA.
It was the SELPA, yeah.
Was it with the SELPA?
Yeah.
Okay, we made an agreement with somebody that we would redo the building and they would pay us back over time. Is that correct?
Yeah, the SELPA.
The SELPA.
Over a 10-year period.
Okay, okay. So then my question is, since it's SELPA and it's not LACO.
Yeah.
Okay, SELPA will continue to use the building and will continue to pay us back over time. There'll be no effect with LACO.
No.
Totally separate. Okay.
Yeah, a separate funding.
Okay, good. Then my next question is, who attends the SELPA meetings?
The directors' meetings? I attend for the director's special education, and Dr. Austin attends for the superintendent's council.
Okay, okay.
There's
then-
a director of, the director of the SELPA goes between the two councils, so he meets with us and then he relays information. And Dr. Austin and I communicate regarding the district's stance and what's best for PVPUSD, because you can imagine with 12 districts that have very different needs and very different makeups, our needs can be very different at times. So.
And getting the group to agree is a very difficult thing. At
I
least in
agree.
the past, it has been very difficult.
Yes.
Okay, so then my next question is, you've given notice to LACO.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a plan, I mean, obviously, if you've given notice, the group, the superintendents, the directors, the collective, has decided perhaps we should look at taking over these services.
Yes.
Then what is the plan?
Right now, there isn't a plan totally set in place. We have discussed several options, and I can share some of them with you, but it is a little premature given that we haven't had the meeting. But there have been discussions about changing the billing model. That is one that is on the table for tomorrow. Another discussion on the table for tomorrow is looking at taking back some of the specialized services, but not all of the programs, and either fund them through the SELPA rather than LACO so that we can control hiring and costs better. And then as a district, we have to decide whether that is where we want to go or if we can come up with a better plan for our students. But I think it's important that we hear where the SELPA is going and what the other 12 districts are thinking before we make any decisions.
Jessica, just to help answer that question, why don't you just go ahead and it's a little premature, but it's like 12 hours premature. It's not that bad. Why don't you tell them what some of the specialized programs are that we're considering
We're specifically looking at deaf, of hard of hearing, and visual impairment. Those are the largest groups that that we utilize for, and I think one of the great things is we've been really able to keep these students in our school systems and our programs, but we need a specialist in those areas to work with FM modules, some of the Braille access and things like that. But my goal is always to provide the quality programs to our students in our schools. And so those are two of the programs we're specifically targeting at ways that we can look better at servicing our students and doing it possibly within the district rather than sourcing out to these other groups.
So taking this idea, it's pretty obvious to me that what you're thinking about is if you're going to take the program back, you're going to be hiring these people, or the SELPA is going to hire the people, however you're going to do it. But that would be how it would work, probably.
What Jessica and I have talked about, and again, this is planning, we're just going in tomorrow to see where it goes. And
Yeah. Right.
I think the only absolute tomorrow is that we don't know where it's going to go. But our thought is, if we could provide those services for less than we are paying and we are in control of the quality, it may make a lot of sense for us.
Mm-hmm.
If it's about the same and it's not worth, we're not sure that there's an upgrade in services, then we won't. But it's really interesting to see what people come to the table with tomorrow. And I'm just gonna tell you that I believe Jessica will be more prepared than most of our other districts.
When you say we, Don, are you talking about we PVPUSD or we the SELPA?
We PVPUSD will be better prepared to make recommendations based on some thought and just flat out preparation.
No, I meant on
provision
the
of the
services.
services.
I'm sure that will happen. I meant the services actually in terms of the deaf and hard of hearing and the visually
Yes.
impaired. You had said
We would take our own kids back, yes.
So if you don't mind, can I ask a series of quick questions to kind of put this in perspective?
Definitely.
So we have a number of students that require special services.
Yes.
How many different categories of them are there basically?
Eligibility categories or services through?
Services, just,
Right now, those are the 4 services.
no, I'm not talking about for our entire student population that requires, we have, 20, 30, 40 different kinds of categories of services we provide or need to be provided to our students?
Yes.
And we provide those the services in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
We either provide it directly ourselves.
Yes.
We can go through the SELPA, which is a group of 12 districts that provide joint services.
Yes.
We can go through the county, which is LACO. They can provide services, or we can go out to a private outside company that can provide the services.
Yeah, and the unique thing with LACO right now is a lot of SELPAs no longer, we're one of the few SELPAs left that actually utilizes LACO programming. So I know that there have been concerns in other areas with county offices of education and some of the programming. So this is not, I don't say this is unique to necessarily our SELPA.
So really what we're describing is how we're going to provide the services one way or the other, and
Yes.
and really is the question of what the delivery model is.
Yes.
We're looking at maybe taking away the delivery model of using the county, either doing it ourselves, going to an outside company, or doing it through SELPA, basically.
Well, one option too is, based on our numbers and looking at it, is hiring our own staff, not necessarily an outside agency, but having a specialization
Well, that's why I
on
say
staff.
providing the
Yeah.
service ourselves.
Yeah.
We provide a lot of the services we do provide ourselves. They're done internally.
Yeah.
Maybe not these specific 4.
No, but the bulk of them, yes.
But I just want to put it in perspective so people that are listening to this discussion are going, LACO, SELPA, what does this all
Yeah,
mean?
it's
So that
complicated.
we're really just talking about how we're going to deliver the services to these 52 students in these 4 categories.
Yeah, and I think integrity of programming and quality for our students is of the utmost concern for me.
Right, as opposed to the money part of it. But obviously, both
No, I think
parts
that's a
have to
huge
work.
part of it as well. I think it's important to provide quality programs and be fiscally responsible when doing it. I think that's part of.
Is the county still billing in the way where basically you're never quite sure what the services are going to cost? Because at the end of the year, they seem to come up with additional
That has been-
costs, and it's a surprise, and there's no rhyme or reason for it.
That has been a significant concern. I have sat with both Lydia and Kathy, and neither one of us can. It's a problem.
Can I ask I'm still trying to get my head too around the LACO versus SELPA. So you go to this meeting tomorrow, there's representatives from 12 different districts that are all part of the SELPA. If the 12 all agree in some way, shape, or form to not go to the county in the
Yeah.
future, do you imagine the SELPA will still exist?
Yeah, the SELPA provides a lot of other services. This is one portion of it. There were things that they discussed like if regions group together to provide or house programs. There's a lot that has been thrown out there.
So the property we have right here.
Yes.
The students that are there on any given day, only Palos Verdes SELPA students, or also may have students across the 12
They're
different
all
districts?
from the 12 districts.
So here's my question. 5 of the 6 districts that are involved in the SCROC issue are involved in this issue.
Yes.
And it's on our property, and we've been providing. I'll be very curious to hear back how they have a dialogue about this issue. And while I wouldn't want to convolute it at the moment tomorrow, I sure hope it's consistent with however they're talking about SoCal ROC, because what's not clear is, would they really like to have Palos Verdes involved, but El Camino's not our home school? Or are they really kind of not too upset that maybe we're just kind of out on the limb here?
I don't think, honestly, anyone's given it any thought. It's all new.
Well, tomorrow should be a tell then on how those other 5 districts,
You know,
the temper of the dialogue and the effort in which of how, so, like I said, I don't want to convolute it, but I would encourage us to just see how that conversation is going. While separate, it is a very similar dynamic.
Yeah, I'll add that since I've been on the board, 10 years, that has been a kind of an objective of bringing programs home, because I think we've proven that we can deliver good programs. Now, the program, most recent past was the program I'm assuming is still housed at Rancho Del Mar. Is it Bay Cities?
That is a non-public school, so again, that's
It's a different delivery model.
That's a different,
yeah.
but we brought it.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and they have been wildly successful, and a lot of
Yeah.
our students participate in both them and have been able to graduate students back into both of our high schools, and some do partial days, but can receive the mental health services that they really need
Yeah.
in a smaller setting. So yeah.
And no pun intended, but my original encounter, if you want to call it that, with the delivery services of LACO when I got on the board was their delivery service.
the transportation.
Their transportation. And when I have parents say, "Oh, I see the taxi cabs show up at schools with our special needs students," and I said, "Yeah, we're saving you money because you should have seen what LACO wanted to charge."
LACO was
So
charging us.
for me, that's kind of it was my first impression of maybe there's a different delivery system other than what LACO. I don't want to cast disparaging remarks because you haven't completely ruled them out as being somehow involved with this, correct?
I think that there's still a lot of work to be done and data to collect, and I think, I think it's important that we look at all of that before we make any decision. We've definitely started. I have looked very closely at a lot of things to get us to this point because I didn't think it was a good idea to go tomorrow unprepared, so.
Let us know what happens. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's going to be very
I'm
interesting.
looking forward to a Friday update, if that's possible.
12 superintendents and 12 big egos. It's
I will add
really
something
a
in
great
my
thing
update.
to watch.
11 big egos, but just the comparison to SCROC, I would say there's one difference. The SCROC is a JPA, there's an absolute interdependence. In our meeting tomorrow, it's not necessarily interdependent. We could branch off and be the only district to go a different direction. So there is a difference, but how the people work together will be interesting. I'm excited about that too.
So my question is, if not everyone agrees, but you just answered that, so
We
we
can do our
can
own
do
thing.
what's best for you can decide what's best for our students.
Yes, I can, and I've already met with the SELPA director to review that possibility.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to item N1, which is a public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing. And we have a few people who would like to address us on the public hearing. So Desiree Myers. And Ms. Myers, before you start, I do have a question for you for later.
Okay.
You're going to ask us to comment on one of the consent items, and you wrote O2, but I have O2A through F. So when you get back to your seat, if you could just let me know which one you want so that I make sure I pull the appropriate item for you to comment on it.
Thank you.
Okay.
There were concerns that were heard by many parents about the lack of textbooks, particularly math, in elementary school last year. Many did without. However, the Williams Act requires that all students have textbooks both at home and at school. My hope is where this is going, this discussion, is we won't do anything that would jeopardize their right to have those necessary materials. And I hope that's included in the discussion, whether or not that's where we're going. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Davidson?
As a former board member and as a teacher, I'm very aware of the Williams Act. And so when I saw this item on your agenda, I wanted to speak to it because I read your resolution, which is your next item, and I read the Williams Act, and I don't see that they match. So I wanted to bring forth my comments and concerns. As a teacher, and I'm an art teacher, I'm a very visual learner, and a lot of people are, it helps for a child to hold a book. Just simplistically, they need a book. In a realistic sense, they need a book to take to their tutor. When they need help after school, they need a book to go with them. I looked up on the website, the California Department of Education, what they require for you to do under the Williams Act. Each pupil, including English learners, has a standards-aligned textbook or instructional materials, or both, to use in class and to take home. Not or to take home, and to take home, okay? So I am asking that you ensure that each child has one book they have in the classroom, and they get to take it home as they walk out the door every day, because it doesn't say or, it says and. The same thing with the actual Williams Act. If you had taken it offline, must have a textbook or instructional materials, or both, to use in class and to take home. But the board resolution says, you added words. You said, whereas the definition of sufficient textbooks or instructional materials means that all students, including English learner, has a standard-aligned textbook or instructional materials to use in class and to take home. And then you added, which may include materials in a digital format. I don't see that in the law. And I take pride in this district, and I know you do too. And I would take pride in the fact that you ensure that every child has a textbook, so they have the ability to take it to a tutor, show to their parent. And the other thing is that the publisher last week at the special meeting admitted that there are problems with their website. So we don't want to have to rely on something that's computerized that's going to fail when the child tries to go online that night. That's not fair to the kids. So I'm asking that you find the money, because I know we have some, to make sure that every child has a textbook, because right now it really is only impacting, that I can see in your list, it's the PVCM kids right now, which have the new big ideas in math, and I'm hoping that you'll give every child a book. The other books are old that I'm seeing on here. You probably have two for every child, or a set for the classroom and a set, one to take home. But a kid deserves a book. I really believe that. And I think that we owe it to them to have a book. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Valeri?
Hello. I realize the district is trying to move forward and become more into the 21st century using digital media. And that's not a bad thing. And I know that we're trying to utilize online learning material. It doesn't work for everybody. So sometimes we are moving around and we're doing homework in the car while some kids are, you get to do homework in the car while Johnny has soccer practice, and then Johnny can do his homework in the car while Betty has her ballet practice, or vice versa. But that's kind of the way we work around here. And so we also have problems with outages, and we live here where we get funny reception, so we don't always have consistent and available reception, and our online availability cannot always be counted on. Our stuff goes out. So we really do need textbooks. I know at Mirror Lest, it was very nice. They sent us out a form, and the parent signed it, said, if you want a textbook, fill out this form, you get one. If you don't want a textbook, you really don't think you need one, fine. You really want to just go and swing with the internet-only option, that's your choice. And I would hope that you would have something like that available. There are people who really want to go digital-only. Let them, if they want to. But for everybody who wants a textbook, they should be able to get one.
Thank you. So those are the comments in the public hearing, which I'm going to close at this point, and we'll go to the agenda item. And Dr. Culverhouse, if you can present and maybe address some of those questions.
Great, I will. As you can see from the list, it's a pretty full list of approvals, and as we leave the books on the list, no matter, if we're using the books or not, so you see some, a complete list. I'd like to address, and it's unfortunate that our one speaker left because, and a couple of our other speakers, when the board adopted the big ideas, for the PVCM6, the 6XL, the 7.8, we looked at the textbooks online, and it was decided, as the one speaker said, to give the parents an option to do a book online or to have the student check it out. So meeting with the principals and the librarians that are in charge of that, students then had the option to check out a book or to use the online access at home. As the year developed, we were having problems with the online component. Our TOSAs were in contact with the Harcourt Houghton Mifflin on a daily basis. We were dealing with one of the representatives. We were trying to work with HMH, which is the publisher, and it just was not working well. So Trent and I spoke with their vice president of technology and informed us, and working with them, that they had changed the platform the first part of August, and they were working out some kinks. And our discussion with the vice president was basically that's not good enough. So in our conversations with the HMH representatives and the vice president, we basically said that this wasn't working for us. Our students at home were frustrated. It was hit and miss with the internet. So they sent us, and they have arrived, and they came out on October 7th. They sent us 1,060 additional books to a tune of about $85,000. So at this time, all of our middle school students will have a textbook in their hands to take home that are in the PVCM 6, the 6XL, 7.8, and the PVCM 8.
And the $85,000 came out of whose pocket?
Not ours. They were given to us free of charge. And it was a nice effort on their part, but they still understand that we are working with the digital component. I have to say that HMH has worked with us very well, and working with Trent also, if he would even like to add into this conversation. But the concern that we had was the students did not have a book at home. We met with our teachers, and the teachers now know that all the students have a book. We were instructed that even if the student said to the librarian, I don't want a book, we said you have to take a book home. So as of Friday, I will let you know that all students in those classes will have a book at home.
Do you have anything?
We have a meeting set up with the vice president who's coming out on, I believe, the 20th to meet with Dr. Culverhouse, myself, and a few other administrators about some of the concerns and issues we have. So this is still a hot topic with their leadership. So we continue.
Is our faculty, I'm assuming, are aware of this issue and have taken that into account in terms of as they assess the students as well?
Very much. Our math, our TOSA, Joan Romano, myself, communication with the teachers. I think many of our teachers who are very tech savvy began to use it to fidelity of the online component in assigning the homework for students that also were interested in the online component, and the teachers continue to work with it. We have worked with HMH to set up a website that the teacher, no matter what time of night, could go in at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and put down the concerns that they had, and HMH the next morning within that same time would reply. So the teachers now know that there is an issue, and many of our teachers have backed off from that online so that the students are not frustrated.
And the hope would be that obviously it wouldn't be either or, that it would be a both and as they move forward. We hope they get the bugs figured out. We hope that students have an option both to have a hard text and digitally, because I think,
Right.
as the last speaker spoke, there's also times at which actually having the book isn't possible as well, that actually being able to access it online would be helpful. What about moving forward in the future as we look at ELA and potentially what vendors we might end up using, or?
Well, at this time, our Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 is also with HMH, and they're aware of that, and also with McGraw-Hill.
Sure.
And we're looking to pilot, but that will be a consideration as we look into our English language arts.
And as we go forward, we'll make sure we order enough materials to accommodate both styles of.
Correct.
Can I ask a few questions on this? And sorry if the rest of you are bored by this, but this is my first time doing this, so I want to make sure I understand it right. Because I've talked to so many parents over the last month or two that have a lot of textbook questions, so if I can ask them, then I can answer them, hopefully. The first thing is I understand the beginning of the year, sometimes it doesn't always work out, because if there's 30 people in French 1 and 40 kids show up the first day, it takes time, and I think people understand that. With the piloting materials, you're not requiring textbooks to be had for that. So that's one question that I think parents and students, I mean, it confuses me that's different. You're testing different things out, but by what point in the year are you not doing that anymore? Or how does that work?
Let me address that. So with our pilot for the Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, we have approximately 21 teachers who are piloting either the Glencoe or the Big Ideas. With our math and focus with our K-5 teachers, during the pilot did it as we would refer to add to the fidelity. They put math, everyday math to a side, and they put up the pilot. The instruction with our Algebra, Geometry, Algebra 2 teachers is students are on the same pace with the no matter which book they're in. If they're in the existing book, if they're a pilot teacher, if they're Glencoe or Big Ideas, students are not losing instruction. Teachers are pulling out certain pacing guides, looking at certain concepts, and they're using a variety of materials to teach that concept. Students do not have the algebra, geometry, algebra books at home. But if you go on our website that you just saw, and you go into the math tab that Trent was showing you, and even the parents in the audience today, clicking on that link will give you free access to the book. And it's not an interactive. You can click on it, you can go by chapter, you can go by page number.
Okay.
So they do have access to the book.
Okay, so with this publisher, I mean, they understand that they've screwed up, right? Am I getting that right? Their platform doesn't work, so why would we use them again? Is that seem like too simplistic of a question? Because
No, I think that's a valid question. I think the issue is with any, I think in hindsight for them, I think when they changed the platform, and they told us they would be changing the platform in August, I think that we are not the only district that's having this issue, because they have pointed out there's other districts across the country who are having some of these same concerns. I think what our next step is to kind of monitor this and see what kind of improvement do they have. I mean, they've been responsive in terms of coming back to us and saying, okay, we'll provide additional textbooks for you. They've sent trainers out to work with our teachers. They've gone to classrooms. So I think in that regard, they are making every attempt to try and resolve this. Sometimes it's an intermittent problem. The old saying, technology is great when it works, but they're having those issues where students, exactly what you've probably heard from parents, they'll be working through something, it times out, they can't submit it. So,
right, and teachers also tell me that it's taking up so much more of their prep time
Right.
to be dealing with this stuff and banging on their computer when they should be worried about other things, and they're not really compensated for that time that they're wasting on this stuff.
I think this is unfortunately some of the reality of some of the online, learning, whether it be here in Palos Verdes or other places, that you have those types of challenges, which, I don't think anyone would think that's acceptable, but we're trying to resolve this with them, and I think they've been responsive in that regard.
And then let me ask a totally non-math question. So I went and I asked some kids just what books you have, and I showed a bunch of high school kids some of these books. Some of them have never heard of these books. They don't ever use them.
That would be, right.
What kids ask me is what about core novels? Are those included in books? Because again, it goes back to our old topic of what parents pay for all the time. I think, I don't know, Emily, you know, how many, you've purchased probably every book, ladies, right, that your core novels in high school anyways. In middle school, I don't think so, but does that count as what's required?
If you
instructional
review
materials, or
the
no?
actual ed code.
That's not part of it?
No, if you review the ed code, which is 60119, the ed code calls out basically mathematics, science, history, social studies, English language arts, ELA. So it does not call out the core novels.
Okay.
And they probably haven't heard of some of these books because they have not probably been using some of these books.
Right, no, they haven't. That's why I was wondering about the core
Right.
novels, because to kids, you have to have Fahrenheit 451, so you have to go buy it, right? So I don't know if that's something we can think about.
Oh, we have.
We have thought about that?
Yeah, first.
So
Yeah.
I'm not the genius that thought of this idea?
Oh, no, core novels go back as long as I've been on the board. You know, when the annex opened up for the library, you know, how many paperback copies can they have of those? You know, it's been an ongoing, we've looked at Project Gutenberg and trying to see whether some of these things that are in the public domain, whether
Right,
they
some
can
of them
be
are, right, some of them
e-printed or something like that. But it's, the availability of those books has been off and on. You know, it depends on how high it percolates up the needs chart.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then I know some classes are changing at the high school level with AP's requirements and stuff, that there's a few classes that they're just not a book for, like AP Art History. There isn't a book that exists right now that you could use to teach that class, which again puts a burden on the teachers, which isn't really not the fault of this particular item, but just, it's just a frustration. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
Okay, so are we now, is there any further discussion? Okay, can someone make a motion, please?
I move that the board approve resolution number 5, 2015-16, the resolution for sufficiency of instructional materials compliance.
A second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Item N3. It's a claim.
Is there anything we need to add to this?
Okay, I mean, we've been advised of it previously, so can someone make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion that the claim for damages dated July 22, 2015 be rejected, and that the claimant be notified of this action as specified under Government Code Section 945.6 et seq.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. N4, revisions to our meeting schedule.
In 4 is my item. We had essentially a placeholder meeting for a potential study session that we considered last year when we set this year's schedule. While we have topics that would be worthy of using on that day, it does conflict with the Rotary Teacher of the Year, which is a huge event for our district. So our suggestion is to cancel that meeting, keeping in mind that the January special board meeting is still in place, and that is dedicated for budget. So this, while we could have used it, I think given the conflict for such an important event to the district, we're recommending taking action to cancel that particular meeting.
Okay, I make a motion that the board approve the cancellation of the board workshop scheduled for Wednesday, November 4, 2015.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're up to the consent calendar. Ms. Myers, did you clarify which one on O2 you wanted to talk about?
B.
O2B? Okay.
O1B?
O1B. You had one in for O1B, then you put something else in, agenda item O2, Ed Services? But which one on O2? O2 has A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to pull O1A, B, O2A. Barbara, do you have anything you'd like to pull?
Nothing.
Malcolm?
Nothing.
Tony? Linda? Okay, can someone make a motion to approve O2B through G, O3A, O4A, O4B?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll go to O1A, and we have one speaker, Sandy Valeri.
I have really just a question here. I have no idea what a elementary consultant is, or high school consultants are. I'd like to know what these people are. Are they full-time? Are they temporary or permanent? What are their duties? Why are we hiring them? What are they going to do?
Okay. I appreciate it. I'm not sure we can answer the question, but if we can't answer the question in the meeting, then we will get back to you in writing.
Well, if you're going to be approving them and approving their assignments, it seems like you should know who they are and what they're doing and why you're approving their assignment.
Okay, thank you.
This point was Maureen's going to answer it in a second.
Okay.
I'm confused as to where the high school consultant is.
Maybe down at the bottom.
No, the consultants have to do with adult ed. Which page, John?
We're on 3 of 6. There's consultants for different things, training, coaching workshops, social media safety, parent university. Do you,
Address those?
are those the ones you're...
What page? What page?
I'm looking at page 4 of the agenda, under O1A, personal assignment orders and other personal...
Sandy, are you looking at the attachment which has the
No, I'm sorry, I'm just reading the consent calendar, human resources...
Okay.
There's an exhibit.
There's an exhibit that has 6 pages of what these people do and what the rates are and so on. Okay, now I understand what the question is. Okay.
Okay.
We can get you an attachment. I mean, it's a stand.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's attached to the agenda. Okay.
It's right there.
And it's a standard thing we have to do each month to approve, and most all of them are always after the fact. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
No, I move approval of O1A.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, O1AB. O1B. Desiree Myers?
I wanted to speak about the dropout prevention item. There is significant ambiguity and flexibility afforded to the admins to misuse these rights that are being given to them. I can personally say that I've witnessed retaliatory truancies, and I've heard of 2 other parents that I've talked to personally have run into the same thing. The district allows administrators to negatively impact our children in a prejudicial manner, impacting GPAs, student records, access to classes, availability of extracurricular activities, and success within them. The district has no policies to prohibit administrators treating students with arbitrary or in an arbitrary or capricious manner. You guys have no policies to stop this. I know this because I did a records request. The district has no ombudsman to work through the issues. The district has no student advocacy available. There's no advocate for our students. Even if I asked for one from a principal, who advocates for my child? There's nobody. Not even the counselor is a student advocate. Just strict obedience that's stated in these clauses, biased decisions, and what do you think the result will be? Well, lots of lawsuits and millions in legal fees flowing out of the district, as we see right now. The U.S. Supreme Court has held that parents possess the fundamental right to, quote, direct the upbringing, education of their children. The court has declared that children are not just a mere creature of the state, that those who nurture him and direct his destiny have the right, coupled with the high duty, to recognize and prepare him for additional obligations. California Penal Code 422.6, no person shall afford or threaten by force, willfully injure, intimidate, interfere with, oppress, or threaten any other person in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution. Do we really want to give them the right to have home visits? Tonight, the staff seeks to increase their authority and autonomy over children and parents' rights. I'm not sure this is going to go over well. What do you think?
Can I ask you a question? Because I lost you at the beginning.
I did.
You, on your card, you talked about Board Policy 5147, which is dropout prevention.
Yes.
So the comments you're directing us to, the change in the board policy to dropout prevention.
Yes. Thank you.
Can I ask staff to clarify the process by which what we go through when we have a policy that's existing and we want to either revise it or create a new policy, and specifically this one? Legal counsel, CSBA, what's the process by which, when we update and or revise a policy?
Sure. We contract with California School Boards Association to advise us on changes to statute, code, legal decisions, and other pertinent action items that would cause us to make changes to existing board policy and administrative regulation. And we have hundreds of those policies and administrative regulations, which are all available online for the public. And through their advisement, staff then reviews, recommends changes, which are reviewed at the board policy workshop. After a first and second reading at regularly scheduled meetings, changes are, then shared with the pertinent staff, so those action items can be implemented.
So any changes we have here in the BP 5147 to essentially decrease dropout prevention are recommendations that we have, did I say to decrease?
Well, decrease dropouts.
Yes, excuse me. Decrease dropout rates, increase our prevention. These are recommendations that we have been given. We've spent time in the policy meetings discussing them. These aren't things that we kind of created because we thought it was a good idea. These are things that have been recommended from CSBA.
Their recommendations from CSBA after an analysis of statute, code, and other legal decisions.
So in this case, this particular one, the last time it was updated was in 2006. And in looking at the blue segments on the attachment, it is listing all the different statutes that have changed since 2006 that are prompting most of the draft changes in this document being recommended by CSBA.
Correct. The blue, bold, italicized, underlined text are the CSBA recommendations that provide the rationale for why the red underlined text is placed there.
So then we get these, we look at them in a policy meeting, we may not agree or may ask questions, we ask staff to go back and get further information before we move on with the policy. But once we've done all that, it's the genesis at the start. It was not something we generated, it's something that came to us as part of the procedures that we go through to keep these up to date.
There are occasions when staff may say, independent of CSBA, facts on the ground necessitate us recommending a change to a board policy or AR, but in the vast majority of cases, these are all originating from CSBA, and it is an iterative process, and that's the purpose of having a board policy workshop followed by a first read at a regularly scheduled meeting, and then a second read.
And
which
at
is
times, we
generally-
also have legal counsel give feedback at times when we've requested.
Yes, when it's warranted.
And amongst the board members in the 8 years I've been on and 18 years that Barbara's been doing it, how many times can you think of where we have initiated a policy and tried to draft our own policy?
A few times.
I can think
But
of
it doesn't,
And how well did that work?
well, that didn't usually work
Well,
out so well.
I can think of one, where I think we're one of the few districts that has a capital campaign policy. We rolled that one our own because of,
We needed to.
we needed to, and we were different in that, and so that's a rare example, but I'm
But you have to understand, CSBA stands for the California School Boards Association. This is an organization that gives advice, legal advice to school districts. And they look at the changes in the laws, and they update policies, and they send out recommended changes. They explain what the changes in the laws are, and then they give you sample language so that there is some sort of uniformity among all the, the 1,000 school districts in the state. But it's a very well done plan. The way they do it is very good. They've been doing this for many years, and if we have questions and we don't have the answers among the staff, then we do ask legal counsel when it's necessary, because sometimes there are some nuances. But basically, these are done by attorneys to help us make sure our policies are up to date. And at no time is the point of the policy to limit the rights of students or something like that. It's simply to incorporate changes into the already existing law, or if it's a new law, to give us some sample language to use.
And Jenna, remind me anyway, we get how many updates from CSBA a year? 4 times. Yeah, and you can just look, if you go to the governor's website and you just look how busy he was over the weekend of just signing legislation pertaining to education. And then he vetoed a bunch also. The legislature is active, and we have to keep up with the law. We can't just thumb our nose at it and say, no, we like the way it was in 2006, thank you very much, because that's not a very healthy thing to do.
But CSBA basically works as a clearinghouse for all the school districts, and looks at all the laws that have been passed, and then makes the appropriate changes to prior information that they've sent us, prior policies, and then we talk about them, and we make some adjustments if we have some nuances in the school district, but we would never limit a student's rights under the law. It just wouldn't happen.
All right, so I have a couple more speakers. Melissa Gallagher?
Do you have a number?
No. And if you had a specific policy you wanted us to look at, if you're making a comment, please let us know.
Well, you guys were just talking about it. So I had something written, but I want to address what you just addressed. So Mr. Bose just said on record that all of these policies that you did they came down from CSBA, correct? So the district had no formal input to the policies that just changed. So everything that's on the agenda tonight.
We had a workshop.
Okay, and who's part of that workshop?
The board.
The board.
So what happens is we have a policy workshop, and certain policies are addressed at the workshop. And they're brought for a first reading, and everyone works through the discussion of here's policy, and all the ones that are listed here were part of that workshop. Went through policy by policy. What's the change? Why is the change? Do we agree with the change? Do we need to modify any change anyway? Once that's all talked through in about a 3 or 4 hour meeting, it's quite a long meeting, then the changes are brought back for a first reading to the board and then a second reading to the board, where we then have a chance to look at what the changes were, make sure they address what we talked about in the policy session, and then we finally approve them.
And the public can comment.
Okay.
And the public obviously can comment on them.
Okay, because there's a lot of things that you guys are changing that are kind of interesting in terms of public discourse or being able to see what's going on. You have several changes that, even voting, individual board members voting, you're not going to no longer offer that on your minutes. You're going to only offer a blanket approval. So when you have a candidate that wants to run for school board, how are they supposed to be able to look at what your voting record is? I mean, can you imagine if Congress did this? I can go on Vote Smart and I can see exactly what I'm voting for. So that's on one of your items.
You know,
9324, I think.
Do I?
You
Is
know
it
which
90?
policy? Is
I
it
can
the
send you, I
9324?
didn't want to overburden because I'm really into definitions.
9324.
Minutes and
So
recording.
you have where, with the minutes, you basically say, I don't want to take up the whole time reading. I can send you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We actually, this is kind of the point of doing this is that if you have a specific question that we can look through, we'll rather do it while you're standing there.
Okay.
So are you talking about the minutes shall report any action taken and vote or abstention on the action of each member present?
Right, so what you basically did is you changed it, you further amend these policies by redacting the individual votes of each member unless the
And if
action
you
was
look-
unanimous.
The next sentence says that, again, just in a different way, according to the language that has to be used. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
So it's just saying the same thing, but in the way that it has to be said now. So it's not saying we're not using the individual votes, we're just saying it because it's the government in more verbose and complicated language in the next sentence.
Okay, so you're saying that the next sentence then,
Yeah, it replaces.
Says the same, it replaces the above with the exact same meaning.
And then if you look parenthetically, that's the heart of the matter. This is due to a change in government code
Section-
54953.
Does that make sense? It's
Okay,
confusing. It confused me too, because if I sat through this recently, I would have asked the same question.
If you get to the end of the food chain and all of this stuff, it's what happens in Sacramento that comes down here.
right. No, I'm familiar with Sacramento, and that's one of the things why I'm speaking on this,
we all.
because on the SAR policy, the superintendent does have discretion. That policy that you're putting in place does have discretion on how that's used, what communities are brought in, and that's important to me because, as you know, I was a former parent of the district. I had a kindergartner who a principal decided to use truancy on, which was not valid, and did it in a retaliatory manner. So for me, when you're going into these board policies and you're updating that and you have that kind of power, that's something that I am going to take to Sacramento, and I'm going to get an amendment for this policy because it can have severe overreach. And I want to know, when I addressed this board a couple months ago in May, what have you done, or you're amending a board policy 2 right before election. You have 3 weeks, you're going to have 2 new board members. Why are you doing that now? Why aren't you waiting until you have an incoming board of 2 new members? And then also, what are you going to do to protect, to make sure that you don't have that abuse of power? And that happened to my family. They created great stress with that situation. And it was not warranted. I had a doctor's note, which I didn't even need to provide, but I did, and still had an administrator use that policy against my family.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with the facts of what you're talking about, so I understand what your concerns are. We've explained how it works, and if we need to get back to you, please write me, send me an email, and I'll try to respond back to.
Well, what I would ask is that you abstain from all of these policies that you're doing right before election. That's what I would ask, and that you question them.
We're not going to do that. We have these policies come up all the time in a random order. They're a program set of sequences. We fall farther and farther behind. It's a standard procedure to do this. If after there's a board election, if there's changes in the board makeup and one of the board members wants to bring back a policy to be discussed, they bring it back to be discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sandy Valeri.
It's not clear to me why you bother having a hearing if you're already determined you're going to vote yes on them, no matter what comes out of the hearing anyway. My first comment is in regard to the one on gate. Let's see if I can give you the number on that one.
Board policy or
Yes, we're talking about
administer-
board policy. We're on board
Okay.
policies. And gifted and talented program, which is BP 6172.
At H, yes.
Okay, and there's a whole bunch of words in here about how you're going to select candidates for the gate. I'm not sure if you guys are at all familiar with a common law concept called void for vagueness. And basically, when a rule is so vague that a policy can be applied ad hoc in an arbitrary and discriminatory manner, it's considered void for vagueness. And I would like to point out that your policy here is void for vagueness, because basically, there is nothing that says that what enables a student to be selected or not selected. There is nothing that is specific and objective that a child is either considered part of the gifted program or not. Basically, it's the opinions of professional persons. It's like a private club. We either like you and you're in, or we don't like you and you're out. And it's ripe for just abuse. There's nothing that's objective and specific about it. And so I'd like you to consider that. You're just going to vote on it and write it in no matter what, but there's nothing objective and specific about this policy about what makes a GATE student or not. It just says, oh, we're going to have an individual ability test. I don't know if you still do that or not. Well, if you do, what score constitutes somebody that gets into a GATE program or not? What kind of grades should you get to get into a GATE program or not? That would be something that's objective. The next set, I have several comments on notification. One of the things that I think you are sorely missing, you don't have any notification regarding, we got into problems with this. Remember, you guys broke the law last year by neglecting to send out a notice to parents regarding their right to opt out of assessments. That's a legal requirement that you have. And there's nothing in here about when do you send out that notice for a right to that. So maybe you want to add that in.
Which policy are you talking about?
On
It's the exhibit 51.
Parental notification, okay.
Yes, parental notification. There's another one that I picked up that said, let's see if I can find a couple others. There were several in here about that I thought were just vague. Oh yeah, when you're going to notify parents about whenever there's a substantive change in a policy or regulation, and that again, what is substantive? I mean, I think right now what you're doing with some of these is substantive. Are you going to go, notify parents about all these changes you've made, and how do you do that? How do you send out a notice that you've made these changes? So again, you've got this vagueness inherent in a lot of these things. Going on to another one. When do you get to, you're going to tell a student they have a right to receive a copy of a student's record and to challenge its content, but you're only going to tell them that they have a right to get that if they transfer from another district or a private school. That's the only time that they ever get to know that they can look at a record and challenge its content is if they're going from a different district. That seems bizarre.
Okay.
Okay, dropout prevention. I have a couple of the same comments that, and again, it goes back to the vagueness and the opportunity for something to be abused and applied in an ad hoc and discriminatory manner, because basically it says that it will be based on student assessment results and or teacher evaluations.
Sandy, we've talked about this, and you're
Okay, well, it's the same thing, vague on its face.
Thank you.
Then there's another one, which is the board
Sandy,
bylaw orientation.
Sandy, thank you.
There's 3 minutes, there are like 20 things here.
I encourage you to come to a board policy workshop. That's when they're all discussed.
Well, I didn't know that we were invited to board policy workshops.
There are noticed, and they're on the website, and they're calendared, every one of them.
Well, it wasn't clear that we were invited, public was all invited to those.
We only can have a board meeting that's in the public, unless it's only a closed session
I
item.
remember attending one that we weren't allowed to make comments to, but.
They're really fun.
That was on.
Okay. Thank you. All right, does the board have any comments about?
No.
All right, someone make a motion, please.
About 1B?
This is 1B.
Okay.
Oh, 1B.
Since I was part of that workshop. Well, I'm looking for what the motion would be. I just move approval of the second reading, that the board approves revisions as presented to the following board policies, administrative regulation exhibits as they are listed in the agenda.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to note that in some of the policies, there actually are statements that are very clear that may not spell out exactly the detail, but will say something like, an advisory committee will be created and they will discuss on how this will be designed and implemented. So while at times it may seem as though there aren't very specific details, at other times it actually spells out what will happen. So I just think it's important to note that, considering some of the comments that were made.
And I also would note that you have a series of lawyers that are vetting all of these things, and they certainly understand common law principles regarding vagueness. All right.
And the other thing is, we're looking at a series of policies, and they are normally part of a larger group, and we may be looking at only one, and there may be 5 or 6 that go together, but only one needed to have a change. So the policy we're looking at is the one where we made the change. But if you read the whole group together, you're going to see that they fit together. And again, this has all been vetted by very capable attorneys. And sometimes policies are written vaguer than administrative regulations, which tend to have more detail in them. So again, you have to look at the whole picture to put it in context.
I also think it's important to mention that during the policy meeting on Monday that we had this week, we talked about the fact that of all the policies that we've been changing, or that we change every time we have a policy meeting, or at least go through the first reading and then come to the open session here, the regular meeting, that we discussed, hey, it's probably important that we figure out what are our top 5, top 10 that we would like to share more publicly, meaning especially shine a light on to the public over the next year. We can't do them all. There's no way we can have a special meeting for every single policy we change, but we did say, and I actually recommended it, that I do think we need to think through which are ones that possibly at a regular Wednesday night meeting that we highlight even more than just kind of going through and doing the final second reading or approval. So there is a point at which I think we can try to highlight certain changes that we think are really they're all gonna impact us in some way or another at one time or another, but that we might need to highlight at a given moment. So that was a recommendation that was made on Monday. I don't think we had an audience. Unfortunately, it wasn't filmed. But I do think legitimately, as we make changes, we'll go. Sometimes there are recommendations that have been in a pipeline for a while, and we only get them, quarterly. So I understand I equally share the passion of making sure that we try to share any changes that come in place with the public, but we're limited on our ability to do that. It's just important that we are in meetings like this, having discussions and dialogues like this. So I'll leave it at that, and I will.
And I'd also like to say that we have been doing policies this way since the early 2000s, and the policy meetings have been going on in essentially the same manner since then. And at the policy meetings, that's where we get into the meat of it, but they all come back to the board for a first and a second read. And that has been going on, again, since the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. So
with that, we have a motion and a second, I believe, don't we? Mm-hmm. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. O2A. Desiree?
My comment has to do with A through C. This is based on information I got in a records request regarding Naviance, where there was a document that showed screen prints that were generated by PVPUSD for the teachers, giving them instructions on how to put a referral for a student through. It was a set of instructions. But on there, it included information about the fact that kids are asked to waive their privacy rights. Now, it's kind of questionable because you think, wow, you got financial information in there. February 12th, we heard that the kids were doing Do What You Are, which is personality tests that, of course, the parents didn't sign off on. I'm talking about Naviance, I'm including that. So the reason I'm bringing up privacy is we're talking about terms of service. My question is, with all this exposure of the personal data that's going out there, Naviance being a big one, did PVPUSD include their writer as is in A through C in those contracts, their data privacy writers?
Okay.
And that's a question.
I think we can get the answer either now or later.
It's in the background.
I'm looking at the...
I'm reading, agreement has been reviewed by the district's liability insurance carrier, ASCIP, and includes addendum language developed
Oh, I'm looking at the addendum.
by district legal counsel for compliance with California Assembly Bill 1584.
I was looking at the exhibit, I apologize.
Sorry, I don't get to see that part.
It's on the.
It's on the agenda.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Under current considerations.
Current considerations? Okay, so is it Trent or whoever the attorney is it the writer as I have seen, or is it a different version of the writer? Does everybody use the same standard writer?
Okay, so we have developed, we've had previous board meetings where we talked about this. We developed a writer that is used for the vast majority of these things. Any writer that's signed is as part of the agreement when the agreement is brought forward, and it's in the exhibit. So you can look at the exhibit and see what was signed as a part of this.
Oh, it's attached online?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a look. Was it the standard writer? Does everybody get the standard same writer, or
You'd
does
have
it
to
vary?
look. I'm looking at the first one, which is the one you came to. It has addendum Exhibit B. If you read Exhibit B, you can see. I opened up Exhibit A, but it's in Exhibit B. And you'll see that they're all posted and they're available, and you can read them.
Does anybody know if it's the standard writer, or whether or not these contracts got variances from our standard writer?
I don't know the answer to that.
Don't know. Trent,
Okay.
would you know, as an IT guy?
Okay. You'll have to look it up. All right, thank you. May someone make a motion, please?
Is it just,
It's OA2.
No,
No,
she
just,
only pulled.
we pulled it for A.
O2A?
I know, but it's okay.
It's O2A, correct?
Correct.
I move that the board approve the agreement between PVPUSD and Brain Pop Educators for the 2015-16 school year.
I'll second that. It's a cool software. I like it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And with that, we have a P. Williams uniform complaint, and that's information item only. The meeting is adjourned.